DIYers. You probably weren't expecting this one.
You thought.
One time, shout out to Aaron Barber one time for the music in the background. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for being here. We are joined by a very, very, very special guest. Make sure on your way in here, you hit the like button. Leave some commentary. Let me know that you hear everything okay in A1. Let's just first off, welcome our guest here, Nate Rose.
What's going on, bro? I appreciate you having me, man. You got that radio voice.
You know,
That is buttery smooth, bro. Now I see why you got so many subscribers on YouTube, bro.
I don't know why these people subscribe to me, man. I just, you know,
That's got to be part of it.
It's got to be part of it. You know,
Yeah.
it's funny because I make this argument about Stephen A. Smith, and that I remember seeing it was a book. Man, I forget the name of the book, but the book was talking about using the things that people see in your character as flaws and seeing how you can turn those into careers or monetize those.
Okay.
Brilliant book, by the way. But I started thinking about Stephen A. Smith, and I was like, I bet you growing up, he was a supremely argumentative person.
Oh, yeah.
And people hated that about him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
Had to.
just
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
just in general, just being somebody who loves to argue? I can only imagine what that could look like in that situation. But man, Nate Rose, I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since Ruslan put you on.
Yeah,
to
man.
me.
And likewise.
But me on to you, I should say.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I had an opportunity to not only dig into the amazing music that you're creating, but also seeing a lot of the initiatives and things that you're standing for independent artists. So I want to start here a little bit about the origin in terms of just who is Nate Rose? Why would we have heard of you? Where is something that we might have heard something before? Because I've seen you all over the place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Nate Rose is a work in progress. Just as a person, you know what I'm saying, as we all are.
Right.
So I don't know, you know, the me now might not be the me, you know, in the future. Hopefully not, honestly,
Right.
if growth happens. But yeah, dude, let's see. I've had a lot of sync placements. I've had some success in the sync world. So
Right.
what's up, man?
Say what's up, it's my
What's
son.
up? Hey, how's it going? Pleasure to meet y'all.
Here, give me a pound, Pop. Give me a pound. No, it's really DIY. In this.
Let's
Go
go.
ahead, give him a
Let's go.
pound,
Come
give
on,
him a
come
pound,
on.
Give him a pound.
Come
Go
on
ahead.
with it.
Yeah.
Thank
Say,
you.
What's up, Nate?
Hey, I like your fit, bro.
Say thank you.
The dinosaurs,
green.
man. Is Triceratops?
Yeah, for sure.
We
His,
like that.
his father had nothing to do with that. Shout out to Moms. Moms put him in that outfit.
That's
'cause
awesome, man.
If it was up to me, he'd be in black tees and
Yeah.
bad hats. But yeah, man. Okay. So you were saying that you had a lot of success in the sync.
Yeah, some success in the sync world. Like I've
Right.
had songs placed in like the Bel Air spinoff. And I've done custom tracks for Adidas. I've had placements with Nike, Vogue in the past. Several different movies, HBO shows, things like that. So that might have been a way that people
Sure.
have come into it. Also, I've had some success on the streaming side in terms of like leaning into
Some.
the algorithms.
He's very, very, very humble about this, ladies and gentlemen. Some success does not look like what your Spotify looks like. How many listeners are we up to right now, Mr.
I
Rose?
don't know. I think I'm at like, I don't know, 330 or something.
You notice how people change their tones? You notice how artists, we've had many artists, shout out to like Nick D and all these folks who are
But
doing
Nick D's a
amazing.
different story. That, you know what I'm saying? I can definitely be humble around Nick D in terms of streaming numbers, but that's a different
none
ballpark.
of y'all reserve. I love it. I
Shout
love
out
it.
my boy.
No, shout out to him because we talked to him, and it's funny because, you know, that was something that as I was listening to the interview that you had with my guy Ruslan, it was something that I felt like was a bit of a difference in your approach. And I don't want to jump all over the place, but one thing I did want to mention is, you know, the way that you have been prioritizing the conversation of art versus business first, right? And not that it's a bad thing for anybody to focus in
Yeah.
on the business first, because this is a business.
Yep.
It's a music business. But I think that's one thing that initially connected me to what you do is how much you prioritize the art. Like, what does the art mean to Nate?
Oh man, I think the art is everything, man. I used to be very, very business oriented. I'm
What does
still
that-
business oriented, but
What does that look like, by the way?
what
when you
that
say
looks like is tracking analytics, building out. Okay, let me take it back
Right.
just a little bit. I started making music when I was 15.
Okay.
I went to college for music business, graduated with a music business degree, and then I became a corporate digital marketer So I worked at a tech insurance company. I had a couple different jobs. I worked at a finance company as social media director and eventually digital marketer. And so, you know, as far as being analytic and leaning into the marketing space, like that was kind of like my brain went there.
Right.
And so, yeah, what that looks like is following the data on a day-to-day basis, diving pretty heavily into building, you know, these lookalike audiences and custom audiences and retargeting and building these like, you know, the fan experience through funnels and
so this is what you were in charge of when you were in that corporate environment.
No, I'm talking about the corporate environment was different.
Okay.
That had its own set of challenges and, you know, different
so in
business.
terms of what the business looked like. Okay,
So as Nate Rose, I was the man that wore all the hats. I did all my own production, mixing, mastering, like graphics, everything, such as the DIYers do.
Come on now,
right?
That's our mantra here. Like
but
we don't leave no stone unturned.
That's right. And so then the marketing was a part of that because, you know, I was able to really like optimize my content and things that I was doing for cost per clicks and things like that. And then it was like, okay, well, if I was also big into finance at the time, which also can be very
absolutely very
numerical.
Yeah,
you know, so I was really just kind of deep into the data, deep into just straight up ROI. Okay, you know, input A, output B. You know what I'm saying? How do we make that more efficient? How do we improve that? And the story for me was at some point when I finally went full time. I was full time for like 8 months or something, and I just had this moment where I like popped my head out of the sand and I was like, "Yo, I'm low key kind of miserable." But I worked. 8 years of my life was spent trying to make a career out of music. I finally had it,
right? But
now it just feels like a job. And if it just feels like a job, I just wasted my life because if I just wanted to make money, if that was the yeah, bro, I could have been a lawyer or something. I could have done something crazy instead of, you know, so but that was
crazy, by the way.
Yeah, it is, man. And it was a turning point because I was like, yo, if I lose my passion, like if I lose the passion for art, then I lose everything because that was actually ultimately the point. I wanted to do art for a living,
right?
But the living was not like the making money was not the part.
That was the main goal.
Yeah, the main important thing. So for me now, that was a point in my life where I kind of like transitioned to start on the journey of focusing more on the art as the primary thing, and I've been way happier ever since, man.
Man. So and I imagine you said you started at 15, correct?
Yeah, 15.
Starting at 15, and how old are you now?
I'm 29.
29. You know. Yep. That's half your life, damn near, right? That you've invested into this. I started when I was about 16, 17, and here I am now 39. And there's still things, obviously, that I'm excited about. I mean, overall, I'm always excited about it, but you're absolutely right, is that there's literally no blueprints out there to prepare you for what happens when you achieve success, and then you recognize, like, not that you're ungrateful, but, like, this is it.
Yeah. Well, that happens with a lot of people. This is a different conversation, but what happens with a lot of people is they have this idea of like, I'm unhappy now, but once I reach this particular goal in mind, that will provide the happiness. Then you reach that goal, you're satiated for a time, but then you realize, wait a minute, like what now?
Yeah,
that didn't do it for me. I thought that was going to fix me. I didn't have that issue. I sort of had a recalibration of perspective and priority. And so for me, I was the reason I was so heavily focused on business and the numbers and all the data was that was conducive to me getting out of this 9-to-5 situation.
Gotcha.
So and that was the primary thing because I was like, I want that freedom. But once I had that, if I'm only focused on the data, then like I'm totally missing the point.
Right. So. And I imagine that even though that shift occurred and you saw the benefits in shifting, you know, there's obviously things from having the ability to dive into that analytical mind, that analytical approach, that you can still kind of bring as your cheat codes into here. Because most of the artists that I meet, most of the producers I meet, we talked about Oh Gosh earlier.
Yeah, shout out Oh Gosh.
I had no idea that you guys had worked together. We had a mutual in that. But with Oh Gosh, like my guy is... We were laughing on the last live stream because I had a session that he did in the home studio, and I was looking through the channels and I'm like, there's no plugins on any of these, and the beat sounds like it was fully mixed. I'm like, well, there's no plugins on this. Where's the chains?
Yeah,
and let it be that, but then let it be me reminding him to, hey bro, could you send me a photo for a thumbnail? And he's like, your brain does not even like, he doesn't even want to. He has no room left for anything except for this music.
Yeah.
And being an awesome friend. But I imagine that, these are the kind of the cheat codes that if you redirect some of that hyper focus into what you do, could ultimately be your cheat code. And I'm seeing like, it's not like you're slacking for analytics. You're doing really well in all of these departments.
Yeah. I think it's important to be able to, like, you need to be proficient in all the areas of your business.
Sure.
So I don't think that, like, I think that if you are like, oh man, I'm not business minded, whatever, that's not an excuse, because if you want to succeed, you do have to have these base fundamental understanding of like how the industry works, what types of royalties are there, what are the collection agencies that collect those, like what are my options for how I can do a deal structure with you as a producer?
Right.
Like you just have to know these things, because if you don't, you're going to fail in horrible ways. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
a lot
and
of
so
people who are going to know these things and take full advantage of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I think in that sense, you need to have broad knowledge, but then go deep in the areas that are really important. And so, for me, yeah, that's like putting at the very top the art and the messages that I'm trying to convey is sort of like the top priority in relation to my music career.
Where is sort of the origin of developing that knowledge for yourself in terms of the music business? And I think I might have even heard you mention in another interview about your history in schooling and how that kind of contributed to your knowledge of the music business. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I went to college for music business, but I would say probably the majority of what I learned was through doing.
Okay.
I mean, and that's not to discredit the education. I think there were some things that kind of helped me like really just understand the structure.
Right.
But so much of the music industry now is just like the old structures are gone and kind of irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the fact that we're even doing this, it's like, hey, bro, I hit you up on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up, bro?
Off
like,
of a text messages.
Via Ruslan. Ruslan, I had never met Ruslan before.
You had never met him before then?
No, we just have mutuals, bro. So it's just internet, like, but that's not how things would have worked in the past. In the past, it would have been as far as distribution goes. Like now, I'm on the same platforms as Drake is on, and where the majority of people listen to music, which is on like the streaming services. But in the past, if I didn't have major label distribution, my CD is not in Walmart.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? I have no potential to reach the level of scale.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I kind of got off on a
No,
a
you're
tangent
good
there,
because I think that also leads me to I want to kind of see where there's overlappage in some of the things that we're talking about, because obviously there's a little bit of an age gap between us, but it seems like a lot of the things that you're saying, I remember having to go into the Best Buy and trying to get things on consignment, and how challenging that was versus going to a mom and pop spot that was like, yeah, we want your business and we want you to redirect folks here.
Yep.
Where are you from, by the way?
I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's where I live. You know what I'm saying? Tennessee boy. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
That right there, man.
That's right.
I had a chance to go visit Nashville on tour with Murs in 2013. We didn't get a chance to sightsee or anything. We went there and just kind of saw things. But I went there last year and just had an opportunity to walk down the main street. What is the main street called?
Broadway?
Broadway. Okay,
Oh,
so I'm
yeah.
walking down Broadway and I'm like, I'm almost in tears, bro, because I've seen it on, I'm not new to it. I've seen it on TV. I've seen it in, when the news covers things, but I went out there for an ASCAP event and I'm walking down and I'm like, look at all this live music, back-to-back bars, and the windows are open to embrace the live music. The culture has been so different on this side of things here on the West Coast, and that, there's a lot of venues and even cities trying to get rid of hip-hop shows and trying to get rid of even live band shows in place of, automatic jukeboxes or whatever. They want to go on AI jukeboxes, I should say.
Yeah.
But how was it growing up in that environment, and kind of what influence do you think that might have played even into your own music journey?
Yeah, so I grew up in East Tennessee, actually. So I've lived in the Nashville, Tennessee area for the past decade. But when I was growing up in high school, I was in sort of a small city, Cleveland, Tennessee, which is near Chattanooga.
Okay.
And so my experience was like there was nobody that I knew in my area that wanted it as much as me, or even had the skill sets or the vision to help me in that. There were a couple people that I kind of like leaned on early on, but yeah, so it was really at the cusp of like, man, okay, well, YouTube has certain tutorials, or like I was learning, you know what I'm saying? I was like struggling through trying to find resources on how to improve the things that I was doing. So, and I think it was a lot more of an uphill battle back then, because there weren't nearly as many resources on YouTube.
Or
now,
structured. It
yeah,
wasn't
and structured, exactly.
to it.
I mean,
can go
now
through
you
war-
can literally you could go watch a YouTube course from any, you know,
Insane.
you can learn how to mix
Yeah.
pretty quickly and get like pretty good information on it. Like,
And thank you for mentioning that. There was a time period where if you wanted to get tutorials on FL Studio, if you didn't know who Warbeats was, good luck.
yeah. I was on Audio Tuts Plus.
Audio
It was Tuts Plus. It was like all these articles around like how to do things, and so I was reading a lot of articles. I was like writing notes down, like, oh, okay, like frequencies.
Right.
Here's what EQ does.
I'm always interested when I'm talking to artists that have been successful independently, that they come from like you said it was kind of a small city, right?
Yeah.
And coming from those environments, I get hit all the time with questions about, you know, as crazy as it sounds in this internet age, because we know how to get our names out there and what to utilize in terms of social media. Have you ever felt like it was a disadvantage for you coming from a small city in terms of getting your name out there and kind of pushing your music out?
Well, I think it's a given that it was a disadvantage because I just didn't have the opportunity to bump into the type of people that would have been able to give me a leg up.
Sure.
However, I never leaned on that. I kind of always like, yo, it's simply up to me to create the success. Like I get to choose how I prioritize my time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I get to orient myself in a particular direction.
Sure.
And I like that. Everybody starts in a different place. There's somebody in a more rural place that might want to do the same thing that I'm doing.
Hello.
You know what I'm saying? So, so for me, like that narrative never entered my mind. I'm not really a woe is me sort of type of person. I'm kind of like, all right, let me see what opportunities I have available to me, and how can I, you know what I'm saying, push towards those ends. So, I never looked at it as a crutch. But I mean, it would have been. I'm sure it would have been easier if I was in a place where, I would have had a little more opportunity to have somebody who like had gone through the motions, you know what I'm saying, give me advice or things like that, of course. But I can't reflect on that kind of stuff, you know.
And I respect that answer, because I think a lot of artists, I don't know where it starts. I don't know how it happens. I've mentored a lot of I don't even call them independent artists. I call them up and coming artists. I think there's a mindset switch when you look at the independents and you look at yourself as a small business. That's kind of my way that I want to, you know, kind of make sure that there's a separation. But when I talk to up and coming artists, I see a lot of them that feel like their career is a charity case to a certain degree. Like, you know, please support me. Why doesn't these people support me? Why doesn't this person? He's my friend. And it's like, well, have you ever given thought to that might not be your fan base? He may not be part of. If you separate your friendship, could you give thought to that might not be the demographic that your music would attract?
There's a lot of other things it could be. You also could not have good music. You know what I'm saying? I
wish I had my button right now.
And that's not to. And also that's not to say that you can't make better music. But like, you know, if your music was literally good enough that your friends were like, I prefer to listen to this rather than the other options that are available to me. That's how you gain a fan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't, your music is your product. If you want to look at it like a small business, your music is a product, and the better the product is, the stickier it is. So it's like marketing becomes way easier when you have a great product. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if I have a really crappy product, I can do all the most intricate click funnel type stuff. You know what I'm saying?
I've seen it done too. I've seen it done with some very terrible products, and I was like, By page 3, I was like, I'm ready. The button's like, yeah, right now. The order bumps up, and then you get the product, and you're like, damn, somebody that was better at marketing than I.
Right, but you're not gonna buy it again.
Never.
You know what I'm saying?
Never.
You would never recommend it.
Never.
But if I got you on a click funnel and you bought something that you were like, this is incredible, like
for this
price or whatever, like I need to tell
yeah.
my friends about this. That's really what it is. I think a lot of times it comes down to that. If you have great music, then the marketing is like, you can figure that component out.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If you, create content, you know what I'm saying? Play into the way that the algorithms work on the streaming services, go and seek your audience. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different things you can do, but there's no shortcut for the music. And it's like, if it becomes your primary focus to make music that is just incredible, like you're in competition with Drake and Kendrick and you're in competition with these people, because when I'm in the comfort of my own home as a consumer, you know what I'm saying? I might be friends with Curtis or might be friends with Nate Rose, but like, I want to listen to Kendrick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so nobody can force me to listen to whatever in the comfort of my own home.
Right.
So it's like you are competing with that. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
and
I about to say, I even
yeah.
noticed that there's selective behavior that I have as a listener, even with those names, right? Even with a Kendrick. Like, am I feeling like a Section 80 today, or am I feeling like, you know, or do I just want a playlist that plucks my favorite songs? If that kind of selection happens to the big dogs, why wouldn't it happen with anybody else at any level of business?
Yeah.
So that's a great point. So let's address the elephant in the room. You know, I don't know what's looking like. Let me make sure I open up this chat, because I want to make sure that I acknowledge my good folks in here. Thank y'all so much for being here. Shout out to all my moderators who are in here holding it down. Much love to you. So I'm sure that there exist a few questions, especially when anybody thinks about my channel and they think about the abundance of what they may deem as anti-streaming content.
Yeah, okay. Let's get into it.
The abundance of you know, just really holding a light up to a Spotify, and specifically because they've been doing a lot of things that I'm just still scratching my head at as a business. But obviously, you know, we talked about it, but I removed my music from streaming about 8 months ago.
Okay.
And the goal was to do that so that I can create the exclusivity through the website and through Bandcamp.
Sure.
In doing so, I did really well with direct to consumer, and it brought a lot of super fan behavior and activity, a lot of opportunity to connect with human beings, and I thought that was awesome. And so in doing so, it's kind of given me a fresh perspective on streaming. Now in the process, I came across a few different people like yourself.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say a few, there's only a few that have been able to have this kind of success independently. But when I think about Nick D, when I think about yourself, and I think about the things that I hear you guys say in conversations about streaming, it's kind of helping me to flip my perspective on it a bit. Right?
I can give you a Steelman case for sure.
Yes. So I want you to kind of expand upon, you know, how does that work in terms of your business model? Why do you still see it as something that is, with all the things that are going on? I mean, you already know how some of the music is getting taken down because of botting. There's thresholds put up that are affecting a lot of artists. You know, how have you kind of found a way for that to work to your advantage?
Yeah.
As an independent artist.
Okay, so streaming is not without its issues. Bots is an issue. This whole conversation around AI is an issue. All those things. I think direct to consumer is a perfectly fine model. I wouldn't recommend it as an exclusive model, but I can tell you why. But basically, the first place I started making real money from music was from streaming. The thing specifically I'll speak to Spotify. Apple Music generated some stuff as well, but Spotify, why I liked it so much was because they were transparent with how you can play into the algorithms. YouTube is transparent as well. You know what I'm saying? That like as far as giving you information on what types of things are really going to help rank your video. You know what I'm saying? Like even just adding captions, or I'm sorry, not captions, but time markers and things like that. You know, like there's a bit of transparency about things that will play to the algorithm.
Right.
So so on Spotify, I had Release Radar. So I know that if I submit my music a couple weeks in advance of the release date on Spotify for Artists, it's going to guarantee that when it comes out, it'll get in the Release Radar playlist of all of my followers. Okay. Right? So that's a guarantee if I do this specific process. So now I have a way to go, okay, well, if I increase the amount of followers that I have on Spotify, the people that click the follow button, I have a direct ratio. You know what I'm saying? Say 10% of all listeners, you know what I'm saying, check their Release Radar or something, if that was a stat.
Right.
Then okay, well, I have a predictable thing, because if I can get up to, you know, I have 45,000 followers on Spotify right now. My songs will do 3,000 first day, 10,000 first week, guaranteed, even if I don't post about it.
Right.
And that's primarily from Release Radar.
Just organically.
So and then there was other ones, Discover Weekly. We don't have to get into the minutia of that, but once you started to develop that scale, then the revenue started coming in, and it is not this way for everybody. Sure. That's the first place they make money, but for me and a lot of my friends, it was the first place we started making like consistent monthly income was from streaming. And then, not to mention, when the algorithms and stuff start working in your favor, when you start playing into it a little bit in terms of, you know what I'm saying, doing the pre-save campaigns that are going to rank it up.
Right.
And the music is good, then it kind of spreads, and you get organic eyeballs for free. which I'm sure you know all about that on YouTube.
Sure.
You know what
sure,
I'm saying?
Sure.
So now, I mean, I'm used to spending money on ads and things like that.
Right.
So what you're saying is if I just do a couple things and like make good music, then it's Spotify's just going to serve it up to new listeners that and the algorithms are based on these other consumers' listening preferences. So they're going to serve it up to people that like there's a high chance that are going to become fans. And there's this kind of ecosystem that happens, and I get paid for those streams. So I'm not even just paying for the eyeballs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there was that. So number one is the revenue that I was making from it. Number two is the algorithms, the transparency of them, and that allowed me to build a predictable model around it. Three was the fact that the algorithm, I was getting new eyeballs and getting paid for those new eyeballs. And so all three of those things were like I'm like, oh, I got to lean pretty heavily into this, the organic discovery and the revenue. So those are a few of the thing. And then I'll say this too in terms of organic eyeballs. You know, you're talking about taking your music from Spotify to a direct to consumer model. Your direct to consumer model only works for your bottom funnel fans.
Okay.
Right. And you know the marketing funnel,
right.
So it only works for your bottom funnel. It's like I listen to music on Spotify. It's going to take a very particular artist to get me to go off platform to a platform I'm not used to and buy the album and put it on my phone. So you have YouTube, so you're going to have a way to feed more people into that bottom funnel in a different way. But if you didn't have YouTube, if you weren't utilizing that to also gate people, how do you get any more top of funnel people? And you have 60% of listeners stream on Spotify. So and you're missing out on the organic discovery as a result of that. So sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You know, I'm glad you're bringing this up because this was something that, you know, initially I wanted to test direct to consumer outside of my YouTube audience. That was the most obvious thing to do. And I knew that I would have that as sort of a crutch if needed. But I wanted to see what it would look like if it was just funneled from social media, specifically Instagram, right? Instagram does really well in terms of finding and reaching new people and being able to kind of like utilize some of the automation services of like a ManyChat. And knowing that that's what gave me the opportunity to engage in conversations in a way that weren't even natural for my normal social media. Like I don't really DM too much. Yeah. Right. I'm kind of leaving a lot of conversations public. And so in having that exchange and them having an expectation of what emoji or what comment am I going to use now, or I didn't know what this song was. Like there's songs that I had, for instance, a song called My Money, where I didn't promote it on YouTube or anything like that. I only did it through Instagram and through Twitter. In the 7 years that it was up on streaming, it made a certain amount of money. I made that money back in a day just from having that social media. So I started looking at it and I said, you know, this is what's helping me. And obviously I've been having conversations with some of my mentors, like shout out my guy Glasses Malone. We've been talking about a lot of things in terms of kind of looking at a Spotify more as a social media and less as a music store for our business model. And so with you saying that, it makes a lot of sense because this is where I'm kind of feeding those new people into it. My only issue, and I want to kind of get your input on this with a Spotify is, and just any platform in general, is how are you able to turn those listeners into emails, into, you know, part of your SMS community, part of your, just any kind of communication outside of that platform. How are you able to engage into that? Because that was another reason why I ended up kind of pushing, because I was like, you don't give me access to these people. And if any point in time you want to set the algorithm in place to not favor what I'm doing, I'm kind of at your mercy.
I mean, it's the same way with YouTube and social media.
I'm having to see it like
that. Well, I'm saying you'd have to build a strategy around gating those anyway. To give Spotify some credit, you have Shopify integrations. You can sell merch directly on your Spotify profile. So you have people that maybe would have been bottom funnel, but they just like, they're not following you off platform, but they see that you have merch and the merch looks cool to them. They can buy that. You have, I mean, they had the donation during COVID. They implemented like the donation thing. But then there's also integration with what's the is it Songkick? Is that the
Songkick is another one I've seen.
Is that the touring?
That's the one for the touring dates.
Okay,
for sure.
Yeah, I may have gotten it wrong, but yeah. So it'll post tour dates and things like that. So they're doing, I think, a pretty good job of giving giving some visibility of ancillary effects to that audience. As far as, directly capturing emails, they might want to. There's all of these companies are data companies.
Right.
At the end of the day,
That's
because
the
the way
value.
everything
That's-
works is off the algorithms and selling the ability to access those. So the data is actually the gold mine, which
Right.
is exactly why you want it. But it's also in every company's best interest to keep that data, and honestly, to keep that data safe, because you might do some good things with it, but other people might not.
For
So-
sure.
So yeah, I wouldn't, if you point the finger at Spotify there, I think you'd have to point the finger everywhere, and that's just the nature of the beast.
That's fair.
I'm for a direct to consumer model too, though, but you do have to have bottom funnel fans, and like if you're just starting out, you know what I'm saying, you don't have anybody doing that.
And that's something I think that as I had to go exclusively in order to see the limitations. 'Cause it's almost like you have to get inside of the room in order to see where the windows are at. You can't kind of see where everything. So it's like I'm in this place in direct to consumer, and I'm seeing, okay, without social media funneling people in, it is what it is. You have what you have, like I said, with the folks that are there. But in doing so, it gave purpose for me for doing everything that I'm doing, because then I'm starting looking like, well, why am I spending all this time on TikTok? Why am I spending all this time here?
Yeah.
Well, now there's an opportunity to nurture an audience and know that there's one individual place to go to. But now I'm looking at this from another lens, in that I have no desire personally to put my albums back up here. However, in the way that I'm seeing it, with being able to, for instance, I got this thing I call a strip it, okay, where it's giving either a snippet of the song, or it's giving a song that has a tag, CurtisKing.com, CurtisKing.bandcamp.com, and then leaving that as an opportunity to engage in some kind of communication that maybe it's not the majority of the people, but at least engages the conversation that, hey, there's more here.
Yeah.
Where I ultimately want to leave them anyways. Even if I'm putting up using the third party merchandising type of platforms, I'm still inevitably trying to get them to know, hey, beyond this listening experience, there's more business that we can have. So I think we're in a place now where it's a lot less wild west, but there's a lot of space for experimentation, and which is why I wanted to have you on the platform, because I'm like, there's things that from a business standpoint, I'm learning from hearing you talk about these things that are very helpful, because everybody's business model is made differently.
I've got another two counterpoints here.
Yeah.
So my friend No Big Deal just released his album. I had the pleasure of working on that, and he did a direct to consumer thing in advance of the project being released on streaming, and he did over 1,000 buys of the album before it even came out. But the reality is that your bottom funnel will still buy direct to consumer even if it's available for free. And it's because they're a bottom funnel. They care about you as a person. They want to support you. So if you communicate that in messaging, then it's like, hey, you can stream it on Spotify if you'd like, but if you would like to really support me directly, you have this opportunity. I actually don't think you'd have a lot of fall off from what you're currently doing on the direct to consumer side, but then you get the benefit of all the other things that come with the Spotify.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where I wouldn't be able to see it unless I went through it. Like I could be stubborn as a mule, admittedly so. And I'm here now at a place where I'm like, if they're asking for shorter songs, if they're asking for specific types of formats, if they're asking for these things so that it creates a product that they can profit from, and I have the ability to offer that without having to, because I think a lot of
you feel like you're compromising your art in order to participate in the Spotify landscape?
That's one aspect of compromising the art. And then also too, I think that when you're looking at the model, as I was, admittedly so, looking at it from a standpoint of, I'm putting all this money into mixing, I'm putting all this money into equipment, I'm putting all this money into the visuals, and to now turn around and say, here for the 0.003, it's just something that I looked at it and I said, that's not the way that you treat fine art. Even in this age right now, people are still paying top dollar for fine art.
Yeah, I get that.
And seeing all, it's funny, man, how many gurus that I see that pop up on social media that want to push this narrative of your music isn't worth anything. I understand where it comes from. I understand that the the human beings at large have a different sort of perspective on the idea of paying for music.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking of it from the art standpoint, I'm looking at it and I'm saying we have an opportunity to insert that value back in.
Well, so this gets a little bit into economics, but I actually think the value of anything is dictated by what people are willing to pay for it. So it is not, the value of your art is dictated by that, the demand. Okay. So for example, I could tell you I charge $1 billion for a feature, and I can do that because that's what I feel like I'm worth.
Sure.
I'll never sell a feature. On the other hand, I could do features for $2 and I'll have so much work that it doesn't, like, I'm over my head and it doesn't make sense. There's an equilibrium, and the value is like, how much do people want to consume this? And that just works itself out, so then you have to just make yourself more valuable, and the way you do that is make a better product, or bring people into the story, or things like that. So in terms of, like, again, to come back to like the streaming money, it's like, if you have the scale, then the streaming money is there. I mean, and it also is completely passive, and also there's organic discovery baked into it.
Right.
So I have this looping system of new discovery, and then there's word of mouth that happens, and then back in, and so you have this process that happens only because, my song popped up in somebody's Discover Weekly. I mean, to get to numbers, I mean, from streaming alone, I'll do $3,000 to $5,000 a month off of just streaming.
Nice,
and a lot of this, when usually when people are complaining about the Spotify thing, I know this isn't the case for you,
right?
But when they're complaining about that, they're not hip to the business at all.
Sure.
And so they don't realize that they're not recouping because half their catalog's with a label.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they're not seeing that, right?
All these people in their pockets, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you got a manager that takes your 15 or 20%, and then you gave your producers 50% master royalties. You know what I'm saying? And then you have an admin deal, and so they're taking. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
there's so many different factors
so it's
that go into that.
Yeah. So that's why you're not seeing that return, but then you're attributing that to Spotify because you don't know the business. And here's why it's important to me. I like you. Look, bro, you're doing this YouTube channel to spread knowledge to people who are trying to make it.
Yeah, we're bringing the success stories like yourself. I mean, and it's important we see this from all angles of this, because inevitably we're all searching for the same answer.
Well, the reason I get kind of like why I really try to dispel the idea that there isn't money to be made in streaming or things like that is because for me and others like me, that was the first place I actually started making money. That's not the story for everybody. But if that was what, like, streaming for sure was what really enabled me to go full time after my 9 to 5.
Right.
And so it's like, if that's the case, then, then make sure your business is set up correctly so you don't end up in this position.
Sure.
But it's like, that was what enabled everything else for me. You know what I'm saying? Many ways to go about it, but like I would be if you're instilling this idea, not you specifically, but if you're instilling this idea that there's no money to be made on Spotify, they don't value your art over there, etc. You just cut off 60% of the listenership that would have been available to you as an independent artist getting your start.
Right.
And then and perhaps the jump off point for you to actually start making money and reinvesting in things. And to me, I'm like, man, we like that has to be dispelled.
Balance the conversation.
It's not the only place to make money,
right?
But it is for sure is there.
And I don't want to hyper focus on just that because it's so much about your story that I want people to know about, and obviously the amazing music that you're working on right now. I want to make sure we get into that
for sure.
But one thing I do want to say, especially this channel, my thing has always been, if I say something and I'm dead ass wrong, I'm going to come right back to the same audience and we're going to have this conversation from a different standpoint.
Yep.
But there's been some things, and I hate to use Spotify because they're not the only ones. Like, I think a lot of, like, Deezer's been doing some ridiculous stuff in terms of getting rid of like 120 million songs, I think, off of their platform. And it kind of got swept under the rug, if not for, content creators like myself that are putting it out there.
Yeah.
But here's where I started to kind of have a separation. I really want to know your point of view on this. And I know you understand this from a business standpoint, and I do as well. It took me having a YouTube, after being an artist for X amount of years, it took me going into the YouTube space, creating courses, doing tutorials, doing all these things before I recognized, like, I was playing music. I wasn't running a business. I was playing business. Now, in knowing how to run a business, I go back to some of these things and I'm scratching my head at how could this be a sustainable model for someone who is trying to build up that seed money, that beginning money. When I think about this, the threshold system that Spotify has, where they put it in place where you need to have at least 1,000 streams on a particular song
In a year.
annually.
Yeah.
And they get to also determine how many, because it needs to be an X amount of unique listeners as well. And
Yeah.
they determine whatever that stat is. Seeing that in combination with a lot of the stuff going on with this botting and the way that they're combating it by removing songs that are on certain playlists.
Mm-hmm.
My issue, as an independent artist is, well, why are you taking the songs down before you take the playlist down?
Okay.
You know what I mean? So when I look at things like that, I don't say that as a trying to argue against what you're saying.
I got you.
I say that from the standpoint of just a concerned independent artist. I can get 1,000 streams. I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at other artists who are like, well, I am trying to be in a position as a Nate who's built up this business by having this income to work with, but it doesn't seem like they're working with me the way that maybe they have in the past.
Do you have are you frustrated with YouTube's thresholds for being able to monetize your YouTube channel?
No, because I feel like when that became a thing, they were transparent. It shifted in terms of what the threshold was, but they were transparent about what that was. Yeah. My thing is doing that, and I know they've been making that decision as a business. My thing is you're doing that now, and there have been people who have contributed to traffic to your platform. There are people here who their whole spiel, like I've seen music videos where I remember, I don't want to use them as an example, but I remember Macklemore would put the Spotify link up there first, obviously knowing how much it generates on a Spotify.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at artists and I'm like, you're driving all this traffic. That's a business for someone else. If you have the ability to drive traffic to someone's business, there's a certain amount of money that is expected.
Mm-hmm.
I look at them and I'm like, you went from getting paid fractions of a penny to now what it feels like is they're telling you to meet a quota in order to get payment for your art.
Yeah.
And that's where there's a bit of a disconnect, only because it doesn't affect me the same way it affects an artist coming up. But when I see an artist that says, damn it, Nate, I finally got my first 100,000 streams on a song, and they're removing it and showing me no sufficient evidence of botting.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I understand the frustration. I think a big part of that is probably optics, because I'm sure there are some reasons for doing that. I wouldn't attribute it to malicious intent. Like we're trying to, it's probably something where like the cost to host the song, if it's not generating or something like that is allowing them to not be profitable, and that's there's probably many different angles to that. I actually don't know enough about their particular reasons for doing some of those things.
Right.
But to be fair, though, I do think that 1,000 streams annually is a pretty low threshold. Even if you made 900 streams, the amount of money you're going to make off of 900 streams is negligible, right? Because you have to have scale. And in order to make money from music, like music is very sexy. Like if you get to be a musician, you get the fame, you get to be the cool guy, you get fans that come to your shows. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's a big part of the appeal. But because of that, you have a ton of people who would prefer to do that than work in a desk job. If you have any creative bone in your body, you know what I'm saying? That might sound appealing to you. But because of that, that's where the supply outweighs the demand for that thing, and that is why, when you get into this ecosystem, people listen to a certain amount of music in a day.
Right.
There's a limited amount of songs that a person is going to play, and you have hundreds of thousands of artists. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's why it kind of that's where it gets devalued from, is because you have there's so much available to you that you have to have a level of scale in order to make money from it. Sure. If I want to have 1,000 people come to my show, I got to have 10, 20,000 listeners in a city. You know what I'm saying? And that's if I have a good core fan base. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't necessarily disagree with you on that front.
Right.
But I think there is probably a little more nuance that I'm not privy to.
I get it.
So I mean,
I was just curious because you're making a lot of valid points, and I am someone personally, I'm just a sponge. I'm a sponge to it all because I don't want to be in a place where the older I get, the more putting my fist up at the lawn like, you guys are doing it. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do is inevitably get to answers and alternative ways of doing it, because you found your success in it. But let's kind of let's go another direction with this.
Let's do it.
I really want to get into the music, and man, this is gonna be a heavy question to put on you. But what is your why?
What is my why?
What is your why? What is
for
you do
art or just in
for art? For
Okay,
art, because
yeah.
you do so many things that obviously support it. We were talking about off camera, like you got content that you already got set up to do. Obviously, it's a blessing to have the support of folks who are helping in some of that process. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of artists who have not even gotten to that point of having to wear all these hats. You see me right now. Even the setup here,
Yeah.
it's been a real DIY experience. What is your why?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a very deep question. I think my why has changed over time,
Okay.
and I think that's part of the maturation process for any person. I think every artist has a why, whether or not they are explicitly aware of it.
Right.
I think in my formative years, before I was a full-time artist, my why was primarily just like to get to be able to do what I love to do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like trying to make money so that I could just do that thing that I loved, and then that was it.
Right.
And you know, over time it has evolved. So now, you know, in my personal life, I've been diving pretty heavily into philosophy and theology, and like really kind of questioning these things. And there's been a lot of things that have kind of driven that. And so, you know, as I've gotten deeper into understanding how the world works and how and my place in it, I'm starting to have these conversations with my friends who are struggling with things that I'm like, yo, I was just there, like here, what, like think about this though, or think about this, or like, etc. And then what I realized at some point is like that those conversations are the most important conversations that I have, and and like as an act of service, I'm pouring into my friends as much as I can to be like, yo, like, hey, I found this like thing over here that it seems to be like adding a lot of value to my life, and I would like for you to have this. And then I realized that I was uniquely positioned to communicate those things with music, because music is my skill set. I put the 10,000 hours in, and so now my why is sort of, I have this. I'm very stoked that it has worked out this way, but I have this kind of perfect alignment between my purpose in terms of service to others in life and how that merges with my art. So they're both pointing at the same thing, which is, you know, pursuing the highest good, you know what I'm saying? And they're so the album that I'm about to start rolling out is called Ultra Marathon.
Ultra Marathon. What's the story behind the title on that?
The story behind the title is that the pursuit of the highest good is an ultra marathon. It's something you decide to run. It's not like it ever ends, and you kind of reorient. There's going to be adversity along the way, but you choose to run. And that's sort of the meaning behind that. And the songs on this project are just very centered around me asking a lot of questions that I've been asking or wrestling with, or you know, and there's personal anecdotes, there's big questions in there, there's cultural, like I'm kind of like trying to piece all of these things together, you know what I'm saying?
It seems like you're absorbing a lot of information. And I'm kind of curious, so not to hijack your story, but I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
How many moments are you having while you're writing where you'll say, you know, we as writers, we'll get into a space where we'll write something and we're writing to create a musical experience and to share a story. How many times or how often are you having it where you're writing it and you're learning something about yourself?
Oh man, all the time. You know, it's really weird because I think when you're writing music, or at least it's this way for me because I've been doing it for so long, I almost feel like I articulate things much better.
Facts.
Because I mean, if I was a public speaker as my primary skill set, and I did that for a decade, I'm sure that I would improve.
Be pretty good
at
it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes when I'm in a conversation trying to communicate a deep idea that I just learned about, I'm having to like beat around the bush to try, that's not, I didn't say that correctly. I didn't say that correctly. When it's over music, I start to realize, oh, this is what I actually think.
Yeah.
And I'm saying it, and it just also happens to rhyme and fit into these cool flow pockets and things like that. So 100% things kind of pour out of me that that were sometimes suppressed or you know what I'm saying, what I didn't realize, oh, that actually is, that's, you know, the nail on the head. And I, you know, this also kind of comes to a question of where creativity comes from, you know what I'm saying, because there's some degree to which I'm like, well, you're not responsible for the ideas as they come into your head. They kind of just appear as they appear, and they seem to come from somewhere. You know,
Starting with mumbles and start. I mean, these things where they pull from. I know it's a spiritual experience, but
Yeah.
there's certain times where it's like, wherever that came from, that's a lot better than what I envisioned this moment to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, man, I don't know, to say that it's all me just doesn't seem correct to me, but yeah. So I have on one hand, you have this kind of purpose driven topics and conversations that I'm having internally and with other people. And then on the other side, I have this just great passion for art and beauty, and like, I mean, dude, I'm a fan of art. You know what I'm saying? So not only do I need to communicate these topics, I could communicate these topics over a beat with no changes and keep the same inflection, and I could give you the exact same message, but it's not felt in the same way. And that's where the art component really comes in. I feel like great art allows you to feel something, and it also communicates a message. And so, or at least prompts a question, which I think is a good way of looking at it as well. And so, for example, I have a lot of Christian hip hop friends.
Okay.
And what I constantly try to communicate to, like the ones I'm really close to, they already do this. Like they already have the passion for art. But there's a lot of artists in the Christian hip hop space who are very set on the purpose of creating, but the art is almost like secondary. It's like to the mission, but it's like your ability to convert people comes back to the product. Your ability to prompt people in a direction comes back to does it sound awesome? Right now, our culture, especially in hip hop, our culture is dictated by or our culture is how do I say this? The coolest people in the culture have a specific vision of the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The people that are the coolest. They look the coolest, they have the most money, they have the status, they have all these things. And so if you're somebody who's young that hasn't even gotten into a spiritual thought process, that everybody has to wrestle with at some point in their life, you know what I'm saying? Thinking about why we're here, purpose, meaning, where we go when we die, things like that. You're looking at, you're like, I don't have any money. I'd love to have money. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, these people have girls. They look cool. You know what I'm saying? They make awesome music. The art is there. And yeah, so then when they start creating things, if they're creatives themselves, when they start creating things, these are the topics. These are the people that are laying the foundation for me. So, okay, so here's what I can rap about. And here's where my brain goes. When I'm emulating, you have to emulate at the beginning, you know what I mean? Because you don't have enough inputs to really know how to just create great stuff by yourself.
Right.
And so, yeah, man, I think that there is a shift that I think is happening, and I have a reason for that, but I'm trying to encourage all of my Christian hip hop friends that don't fit this description to be like, yo, you have to be able to enter into this space of making art at this level. This is what the cathedrals were, bro. You know what I'm saying? This is what, like, the Sistine Chapel, you know what I'm saying? That's a magnificent art, bro, that has lasted, as you know what I'm saying? It's still
the stickability of that.
Yeah, so anyway, big rant. But yeah, man, I think that we need more voices that are pushing people towards something that can really add value to their lives, rather than sending them down a path that is going to ultimately be a place they got to crawl out of.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, I think there's been a lot of things that have happened over the last, really over the last few months with this Kendrick and Drake, because there's so many conversations that I've seen stem from it that have taken on new value. And I see more people, and maybe because it's kind of the nature of the internet now, that are speaking about these things, that have audiences to speak about them. One thing I wanted to come back to, because I wanted to kind of get you a little bit of your opinion on that as well.
For sure.
But I feel the same way about artists that are closer to my age. You talked about the Christian hip hop artists. Artists in general, especially hip hop, more so hip hop artists, they get to a certain age, and it always boggles my mind. Growing up, these artists are super rebellious. They're not necessarily considered, they're not worried about social norms. Like, I live by my own rules. Then they get to 38, 39, and they feel the most insecure about what society views them as, rapping at 38, 39, 40, right? Okay. When I think about one of my favorite rappers to this day, Andre 3 Stacks, 3000, when I saw him say the things he said, I was like, Clutch the Pearls. I'm like, bro, like, what are you doing? What are you talking? Like this, you are still today. I think he's still one of my favorite rap storytellers and voices. Man. So to hear him talk the way he talked about, like rapping, like what am I supposed to rap about? What do he say about some kind of, I forget what he's about, but what is it? What do he say? What is the test they do when they look in you, whatever it is? When I saw him talk about that, I was like, no, this is part of the programming that happens with artists that get into society or get into a space and feel like, if I can't talk about the things I talked about in my early 20s or, my late teens, that I have nothing to talk about. And it's like, fam, I have more things to talk about now because I've lived more life. What's kind of your perspective?
So okay, I'm glad you took it there, because I was like, we interpreted this differently, because because you said with the Andre 3000 thing that you felt like it was an artist's insecurity. And I was almost giving him credit for the fact that it's like, yo, if I don't have anything to say, I'm not gonna rap about things that are not important to me.
He was honest.
Yeah.
He was honest. Yeah.
So no, but I agree. And dude, this was gonna be basically exactly what I was theorizing.
Right.
Okay. Which is why some of this shift is happening, and I've seen it with a lot of artists. Okay. Once you get to about 30, if you have, if you are get married or you have kids or things like that, and just the wisdom that comes with life experience, you've experienced. By 30, most people have experienced some level of pretty serious diversity.
Sure.
I'm sorry, adversity, not diversity.
That too
in America. Yeah. Shout out America. You know what I'm saying? The melting pot. Yeah.
By 30, if you've only seen people that look like you, you need to venture out.
Yeah, man. But I think that the independent artists that have been making music are hitting those ages, and they still have audiences. When you have these gatekeepers with the labels, there's a certain thing that they're looking for that they know they can capitalize on, primarily with youth.
Sure.
Those are the people that typically are more fanatic about things. And so they know what the youth cares about. At that stage, in your youthful mind, we were all there at one point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah. So it's like that is what we're prioritizing in terms of the topics, because that's what we feel like sells the best.
Right.
But, and I'm not saying that's the one narrative or one thought process that they have. But I think that a lot of these independent artists that are gaining this wisdom are starting to say, wait a minute, I have all these other things to rap about. They've hit their 10,000 hours, and they've hit a realization that, yo, like, why am I making art? I think for me,
it's a scary place to be for a lot of them, I think too.
Yeah, but I think it's great, because I look at somebody like No Big Deal or Coda the Friend or Chance the Rapper or J. Cole or Kendrick. Or Coast Contra, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think that the fact that we have independent artistry as a possibility, is providing this alternate narrative, and we got cool people in this space, bro. Kendrick and J. Cole are two of the big three, right?
Well,
and they're touching on those deeper topics, which I think is crazy.
I was going to say, not to hijack the point, but also too, even though they are still connected to major labels or through distribution deals or whatnot, the fact that we live in a time where it's not a rare thing to see them cross over and shake hands with the independent artists or have a relationship with, like when I see, for instance, a La Russell and a Hit Boy come together, or like a La Russell and Timbaland come together, or Russ and the multitude of artists that I've seen him go that at
1K
the time,
Few and Zaytoven.
You know what I'm saying? So like when you see these type of collaborations happen, to me, I think it says a few things. One, it obviously says that there's independent money in the space, because folks don't collaborate like that because just for the love of it, right? That is an aspect of it, but also too, it shows you that I think there's a level of at least this is my theory. You see a level of authenticity in being disconnected with the people. The fact that you're able to talk about things that when you write it out, if you were to use that as a template 10 years before, it'll be a lot more general than what it is. I look at these kids that are going viral on Instagram now. They're not making conscious hip hop, but they're making like truly self-aware and nuanced, and there's adding details or adding names. They're telling you things that are specific to their region. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, there was a point in time where they would criticize you from a major label standpoint and say that can never be massively successful. But these kids have the numbers now.
Yeah. But honestly, I think that is closer to real art than the alternative.
Sure.
So in rap, I do think that there's a lot of. I mean, it's very egocentric, and
Yeah,
I think
a lot of it is.
part of maturing is becoming less egocentric.
Yeah.
And families usually do that for you. You know what I'm saying? You start to feel the burden of
Sure.
providing for, you know what I'm saying, your son or daughter or whatever, right? You have that. And so then you start to go, oh, this life actually isn't, like, I'm not totally the main character in my movie. Like and where you start to find real purpose is when you start to open that up
Mm-hmm.
and realize that you have roles and responsibilities in relation to other people. And with the wisdom you've gained, you have an obligation
Sure.
to spread that and share that with other people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, and dude, I think that there are a lot of artists, major artists, you know, and we don't have to name names, but
Right.
but there's a lot of major artists though that are still, you know, 35, 36, 38, that are still trying to rap about things that are egocentric, and it starts to sound real silly. You want to be the 40, 50-year-old
Come
guy
on,
at the
man.
frat party?
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
You don't have to mention, but I know you mentioned a very popular artist and him talking about, you know, him being with twins jumping off of jet skis. And
Yeah.
it's like, bro, you get to this age, you do a lot less jumping. First of all, you do a lot less
Just from
jumping.
a physical perspective.
Just jumping.
You know what I'm saying? Just
Let's
my
just
knees.
start there.
That's just my knees. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
But in general, it's like, this is the most wise that I've ever been at 39, right? It's the most wise I've ever been. This is the most aware of my surroundings. This is the most in control of, you know, because you'll get exposed to certain things, and I know you're very passionate about philosophy, but you'll be exposed to certain ways of living. Like I was exposed to Les Brown and Tony Robbins at a very early age, and I interpreted that from a very different perspective than I do now as a dad, as someone whose life has, even though I'm doing more things, life in general has slowed down. It's not so like panicked and, I got to do this by, you know, now it's so much more in control of it and in control of myself. With that said, though, I see so many people get to this stage and say, well, I guess it's podcast time and that's it. And you're still being creative in some aspect, but I still look at that and I'm like, you have so much to give. And I always think of this vision in my brain, 200 years, 300 years from now, when people are searching through the artifacts and they're looking at, you know, this time in history, right? And they're looking and they're saying, you know, why are we noticing a large gap of when artists met this age and they stopped giving art?
Yeah. When they figured the most out.
They figured the most out and they said, oh, that's child's play. No, thank you.
You know, I think it's because at that age they don't have enough examples of what it looks like to make high quality art around topics like that. That's why Mr. Morale was so impactful for me. Is because I was like, Kendrick's my favorite rapper, and I'm like, oh, this is how it's done. This is what it looks like when someone who is excellent at their craft and is simultaneously questioning things and thinking about the world, how they can make a product that holds up both commercially and philosophically. And that to me just like kind of blew the lid off. I'm like, okay, like let's go. Coast Contra, same thing. And you know, I still think they're trying to figure out the commercial success side in terms of making great songs rather than just obliterating every beat that they rap on. Yeah. So all credit to them. But I mean, like, I think that once certain topics start being the primary like topics, then it's easier for somebody who isn't as much of a visionary by default to make music that kind of aligns with those things.
Well, it becomes,
you know what I'm saying?
It establishes at least somewhat of a template to build off of, or it passes the baton. You know, I heard in your conversation with Ruslan, he was kind of making a connection between a 444 opening the door up for a Mr. Morale, and I'm like, these individuals that are in place, I feel like they have a responsibility to do it in the most honest way that they know possible. I'm sure that in 10 years from now, Kendrick will look back and see some things that are like, okay, I have now this perspective on it.
Yeah.
At this age. Because I know I do that with my own art for sure. So I'm looking at this now and I'm like, you know, when I look at the battle, and I want to kind of get your zoomed out point of view of that, when I look at the battle of Kendrick versus Drake, the more that I dive into it, the less that I see, because for me, I was about the bars. I'm a hip hop head. I'm looking for the bars. The more that I see how much it's about like very basic ethics, very basic morals. Like where's your moral compass at? Where does it stand when it comes to family? Where does it stand when it comes to ego? Where does it stand? Because what we're seeing, to me, is the collapse of an ego. What we're seeing is, sort of a certain way of operating as a human being, as a business, being kind of exposed.
Yeah.
Even when I look at the Not Like Us video and seeing how the climax of the video is the
owl
family.
in the cage. Oh, okay.
Well, that's kind of, obviously. There's a few of them in there. But I think for me, it was seeing, after all of the stuff that had been said, because a lot of things get said back and forth in any battle that are questionable, the family.
Yeah.
It's what gets brought to the forefront. And that's something that now I'm seeing people who are kind of analyzing who is Drake. They're kind of analyzing now, is it time for him to grow up?
Yeah.
And when you have that conversation, what happened with an artist so big, it's beyond the artist. It becomes more so of a cultural conversation of what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely think Kendrick took it that way.
Sure.
I think he looked at it as like a spiritual warfare. Right. But I think that I think you're very right in that assessment. And I think, to me, Drake is an amazing artist. And I think that it's a disservice to still be so egocentric with the topics.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because he's incredible at what he does, bro. He's been on top for over a decade.
Right.
He in every element of his career is like top notch. You know what I'm saying? Executed at a top notch level. And the ironic thing is he used to make really, really deep music.
Yeah.
Do you remember his song Brand New?
Yeah.
Okay, so Brand New is kind of a deep cut, bro. But this here is on some truthful shit. I feel like everything I do, you're used to it. So I keep hearing stories about who you've been with. So that's why I got to hide how I'm feeling inside. So you still think I'm confident and down. Is this going to last? You're up on a pedestal. Or we moving too fast? I feel like I'm in crazy competition with the past. That's why I got to ask, is anything I'm doing brand new? That is him diving into a relationship with a girl and saying, I know I'm newly coming into fame. I know I'm really interested in you, but I know you've been with these basketball players and this, and like I don't really, I'm insecure about this, but I'm like putting on a front. Like, is any of this new to you? Like, do I add value? Like, that's very reflective. And those are the Take Care is what, like, the songs of that era were the ones that gave rise to his success in the first place.
Right.
And then, again, I like a lot of Drake records for the format, like the club formats and the things like that. But I mean, I would love to hear what an enlightened Drake would make. I think he would make better. Like, bro, I think
you would hope so, because you now have access to have seen the entire world 2, 3, 4 times over, right? You've been at the top of the game. You have seen perspective. This is where you might have had a disconnect with a Jay-Z's Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
Because it was very much from the perspective of, this is my life outside of the culture. This is what I've been experiencing. And, there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing that I do believe in. Like I mentioned him earlier, but my guy, Glasses Malone, he's like, the moment you feel like you're bigger than the culture is the moment that is the beginning of the end. Right? When there's certain things that you look at and you're like, I'm above that. That's why, like, I never really liked too much of seeing sports analogies. Yeah. Because when you think about the NBA, for instance, not doing the slam dunk contest at one point in time was seen as like, you'll never be seen as a GOAT if you never knock that off of your list. But there are certain things where it's like, when you stay, like right now, I believe the moment that is happening for Kendrick, and that will forever be solidified as part of his legacy, is the connection that you're seeing with the people, being ground level, being there with the Not Like Us video and shooting it at the Thames everybody knows about in Compton, going to these areas where there are people who are going to be like, yo, my kid was in this video. And it's funny because I heard him talk about one time when he was a kid and his family going to take him to see Tupac at a swap meet. So it's like, that's somebody's story right now, but that's a story that is connected at family. And also too, a lot of the topics of the songs, I think about Meet the Grams, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, but the last verse of Meet the Grams is so interesting to me, only because everybody talks about the fake daughter thing. That's not what I'm interested in. I think what I saw there was he had a conversation with a certain demographic that is generally a female fan of Drake, and he painted a certain picture of a deadbeat dad, or of a type of man that feels like their work is much more important than their contribution to their family.
Yeah.
when you see that at the forefront, I can't help but feel like there's a renaissance underway. I can't help but feel like there are people at large who are now changing their expectations and really to match a lot of their actions and how they consume stuff on social media.
Yeah.
When I see the artists that go viral, I'm like, I know why that went viral.
Yeah.
When I see your content that does well, I know why you're connecting, because you're not talking above, you're talking to, and you're talking from a very vulnerable place.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of a general statement. I don't know if you had
No,
anything.
no, I think I agree, and I think this is, I think there is. I feel the sense that there's a renaissance happening, because I think the narratives we've been sold, even just if we take a step outside of rap, I think the narratives we're being told about what it means to live a meaningful life, where you should place your identity. You know what I'm saying? Do roles and responsibilities actually exist? Is there I think the narrative we're being sold culturally in those spaces is not sufficient for the human soul.
Right.
I don't think and here's the thing, man.
That's a heavy statement. That's a heavy statement, by the way.
Dog, we are more successful than 99% of humans in history.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sitting in air conditioning right now.
Right.
Okay, you live in a hot place. You live in a desert, bro. You know what I'm saying? We're sitting in air conditioning. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
We go.
right.
If you want to get a package delivered to your house, you can get anything you want. It'll be delivered here in a few hours,
Right.
Without having to leave, get out of your pajamas. You know what I'm saying? People, 500 years ago were like, you know what I'm saying? There's a 50% chance that I'll die in childbirth, but it's worth it for. And so here's the thing: we are the most prosperous, and especially even in America too.
Right.
We're in America plus 2024, we're the most prosperous we've ever been, and we are having a total spiritual crisis. There are more people depressed than we've had in the history of us recording those.
Yeah.
Something is going on. Something's not adding up, and I think a lot of it is actually how you view the world. So I'll give you an example. I could tell you who Nate Rose is. I could say, if I'm telling you about my career, I could tell you, yeah, man, I've been making music for 15 years, and I still haven't had the opportunity to go on a tour. I've not had any real major label looks. I'm not in any of the hip hop circles. I've been grinding it out. These people have pushed me away. I have all these things I want to do, but I'm just being stopped and being prevented from doing this, etc. Or I could tell you, man, I'm blessed. I make the type of music that I do what I would love to do for a living.
Right.
I make the type of music I want to make. I communicate the messages I want to communicate. I have fans, you know what I'm saying, that I get to interact with. I have channels in which I can speak directly to them without a gatekeeper.
Right.
Okay. The reality is both of those are true. Both of those are true. It's the story I tell myself that dictates how I feel about my position.
That's good.
And so the process of gratitude, people call gratitude a practice. It's a practice because gratitude is just reorienting your narrative to the things that are good in your life and that you have. And I think so much of what we're being told is find your own identity yourself. You're fully responsible for bearing the burden of how you should be and interact in the world. Right. Reject all the traditional ideas of what it means to live a purposeful life. You know what I'm saying? Reject all these things. You're heroic if you say, screw my parents and what that vision is for me. I'm going to go find it myself. And then you just put all of that weight on your own shoulders, bro. And then you're like, well, how do I find meaning? Well, okay, well, you just, by necessity, if that's your basis by how you view the world, you have to become more egotistical because everything is about me and how it affects me and this and that. Yeah. And then you just go deeper and deeper into this self-ruminating, self-reflective, insecure cycle. And I think this needs to happen because everybody senses that, but we don't know how to make sense of it. And art and culture drives so much of that conversation. Right. And that's where I feel like you do have a responsibility as an artist that has matured to make music that provides that for people, because you can be the seed that really changes somebody's life, bro. Sorry.
No, I'm good.
I get a little emotional, but
I'm glad you're saying this because this is stuff that we don't get an opportunity to kind of peel back on.
Yeah, man. I have real things going on with real people in my life, bro.
Right.
Like people are hurting for stuff out here, bro. I want to like orient us. I want to encourage people to orient us in a direction that provides that value, bro, that aligns our narrative in the way that we should be. And so, I mean, that's the mission with the album. That's the mission with the music. That's my life's purpose. I'm starting to look at my, like, you know, if I'm looking at my life's work, what it means to have a life's work, it's like, bro, I want to have a literary collection that has a sonic
Like
underpinning, right, of ideas that are like deep, you know what I'm saying, questions about how we should be approaching this very difficult thing. You know what I mean?
So I gotta pull this up while I'm talking about it. Now you're good. You good? Take a second, bro.
No,
Take
I'm
a
good.
second,
I'm good.
Man.
We back, baby. We back.
No, you're good, man.
We back, bro. I ain't afraid of no tear.
I'm glad. Neither
That's
am
beautiful.
I, man. Because as I'm listening to you describe it, it is something that I get battled with this on a daily basis because I do so much still on my own, right? And I figured out how to automate a lot of the process. But when it comes to my art, that has always been number one. Making music has always been number one. Yeah, I have the ability to do a lot of these things. Yeah. I'm grateful, supremely grateful. And matter of fact, that was something I was going to pull up in the process was the statement I saw. There it is. So this is posted by an account called Fess Hole. Don't worry about the name.
Okay.
It says, I'm 37. Instead of regretting that I can't wake up again, 18 again, instead of regretting that I can't wake up age 18 again, I pretend to myself that I'm 90 and that I've woken up age 37 again.
Yeah.
And that I get to magically, wonderfully have the next 50 years again.
Yeah.
Reading that had me feel how you feel. It had me feel like that to the point where I'm sitting in front of my DAW, making music, and I'm writing these verses, and I'm like hyper focusing on whatever detail it is that I'm not nailing, and it's got me, you know, having my own self-doubt, even 20 years into doing it, still having a self-doubt. I get into those conversations about, you know, what should you be doing at this age, all these different things. And then I get reminded that one day this will be the only access someone will have to my story. One day this will be the only attempt that they will have of understanding the time period that I'm in. How much of a disservice would it be if I was chasing things that, you know, are low-hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Easy to go viral and do these things. And I say easy to go viral because it's like I know some of the...
There's a formula to it.
There's a formula to it, and I know some people musically that can easily get there. But I'm like, the reason why I love the artist, the reason why there's a mutual artist we both have a lot of respect for in John Bellion, and the reason I love it because I introduced the Definition album to my wife before when we were dating, played it again while we had our first, you know, our son. She was having our son, and she'll listen to it and immediately say, "Oh my God, it reminds me of when we were driving to Venice Beach." And I'm like, those stories exist. There are Nate Rose stories that exist of listeners of yours. You'll never meet them. This is the craziest thing I always think about. You will never meet this person, but you have been there every step from them graduating high school, meeting their girlfriend that became their wife, and they've had such a very personal experience with you, and they just don't do social media.
Yeah.
Knowing that kind of experience exists, for me, is enough to kind of turn that part of my brain off that is so analytic focused, that is so results focused. I wonder for you, for somebody who has found that success, for somebody who continues to find that success, for somebody who had that as a job profession in the corporate space, how are you able to kind of turn that part of your brain off to focus back on what you're obviously showing matters most?
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier that it started with the realization that I wasn't happy about the career that I had. And even from that point, that was back in I was probably in 2020 maybe. Yeah, that was 2020 when I had that realization that kind of shifted my perspective. I've done a lot of growing since then.
Do you think that was a reset, by the way?
Bro, that was one of the most profound changes of perspective and changes of heart that I've had to this day.
Talking about the pandemic specifically, right?
No, I'm talking about the realization of where I was in my career.
But go ahead. In general, zooming out before you get into that point. Zooming out, do you feel like, because I keep hearing that being said by my peers, is that the pandemic, the having to stay in home, the having to figure out, is this what I want to do with my life? Because it's the first time some people are sitting still.
Yeah.
Do you think that could have contributed to where you were at, or were you already kind of heading in that direction, you think? I
think I was heading in the I think that's a great point. I'm I'm sure there. I mean, growth happened that year. Growth happened in other years. I don't know how much to attribute to the pandemic. Now, I did feel a pretty. I mean, I was scared like everybody else in the, you know what I'm saying, in the first couple like we don't know, you know what I'm saying?
I was wearing masks to get Amazon packages.
Yeah.
It was a different
and
time.
also for me, when the pandemic hit, I also got hit by a tornado in Nashville.
the same time.
You remember Nashville when it got hit by a tornado?
Vaguely.
Anyway, it hit our apartment complex. So I was
Get
like
the hell
out
outta
of power
here.
for 2 weeks, and then I was out of Wi-Fi for like you know, and I have like
Wait.
Yeah.
My brain is
Yeah.
processing it. So you were in the pandemic, no power for 2 weeks. What the hell is life at that?
Dog, I mean, we were just figuring it out, bro. I had a homie that whose wife owned a brand management company that she was nice enough to let me like pop up in her office space and bring my studio there so that I could like continue doing things. And I went, you know, stay with my grandparents, things like that during the power outage. You know what I'm saying?
That's insane.
Yeah. So I don't know how much to attribute to that or not, but I mean, I know that was true for a lot of people, and I think you made a great point about them sitting still. And I think the stillness really it's reflecting without satiating yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can satiate yourself, bro. Video games will satiate you. You know, food will satiate whatever your vices are. You know what I'm saying? You can distract yourself from your what Carl Jung would call the daimon, that conscience, that voice inside you that says, "Hey, you're built for something more than this." You know what I'm saying? But you can kind of quell that. You know what I'm saying?
Enough distractions these days.
Yeah. So the development kind of happened through that. And then I think your initial question was. I'm trying to remember what your initial question was when about like transitioning from analytics to.
Yeah.
So can you reiterate that?
How are you able to? So you know, obviously we have the two parts of our brains: the ones that is analytical and the more creative side of things. How, for me, sometimes the analytical brain can get the hell in the way of my creativity.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to kind of get into a flow state, and that's kind of what happens. I've done research on flow state. When you get in a flow state, that part of your brain that is in charge of making decisions and that needs to get the full scope of things and the details, the part of your brain also that stops you from being creative in a moment.
Yeah.
Because of those questions, shuts down and you start losing track of time. You lose track of whether you've ate. That's when you're in the flow state.
Yeah.
And so when I think about, I have that in common with you in that my upbringing, my pops is super analytical. He was a math teacher growing up. And so that part of my brain, when I shut that down, I make the best art.
Yeah.
When I need to do the business for that art, I do it better when I bring that analytical back into what I'm doing.
For sure.
So I wonder how you kind of
I think both of those are really important, and I definitely do sometimes get back into the analytical when I need to you know what I'm saying, figure out the marketing strategies for that. But I mean even then, this other part of your brain that speaks to people is evoked. You know what I'm saying? A lot of marketing is story and narrative and things like that.
Still creative.
So both of those kind of play in. I would say though, in terms of how heavily one part is activated in relation to your career is related to what you're setting as your top priority. So if your top priority is making money, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And okay, there's predictable ways to get to that as your right, because you have numbers that like there's formulas and there's algorithms to look at, and there's ways to play the game, and you know what type of content you can make to do that. But how do you, what is the data analysis around love or hope or fan connection, true fan connection? You know what I'm saying? What is that something you can quantify? How the relational component that you have with the fan, that all happens at the level of something that's different. And I think that if you're focused on the finances or the data analytics as your primary goal, that will suit you. But that's an egocentric endeavor, because I want to make more money and I want to be successful and I want to be viewed in this way and I want to do this.
Right.
If the flip switches into a space of what actually is important is taking these things that I've learned that have added peace, joy, and stability into my life and making the absolute best product in order to service it at all.
No.
That just becomes a process of like, I want to be as authentic as I can on this song.
Facts.
And I want to create something that adds more good into the world.
Right.
And I'm just going to let it go. I don't ever really create from the place of thinking about the end listener. I'm kind of like, I have certain sounds that I like. I have certain types of music that I enjoy. These are my inputs into my own creativity and what I like to make. And I try to make the songs that I wish existed. And that process is not in relation to any end user. That's like, what do I like sonically and what do I want to say? And then I figure out how to market it after that, you know? So
and I don't want to double back to this, but it is slightly related because I've heard how success sometimes in the streaming space, like a Spotify, and I've even seen it to where you start submitting the playlists and they'll have these critiques of kind of shifting the art in certain ways. That was also another conversation that I've had with my audience many times where I'm like, we're the creatives and we should be leading the way. There's certain things that you want to take feedback from the audience, obviously, on, and it's just my opinion. You want to take a feedback from and kind of understand the things that are working. If you're running a business, that would be crazy not to. But I think Russ might have had this analogy one time where he's like, I'm in charge of creating meals and putting them on a menu. And the audience inevitably gets to choose.
Yeah.
I want this,
okay.
or I
yeah,
want this,
I like
I want
that.
this. But I'm kind of wondering with you, be it that you are very, about the art and figuring out what things are kind of making you have these moments, these dopamine spikes, these, emotionally charged moments. If you're not thinking about the end product, or not the end product, the end user.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where that does kind of cut into what you're doing? Is there ever a time where you're looking at the success of a song that you had and while you're creating, you're saying, oh, should I do 3 verses on this? Or, oh, should I change the hook?
No. So I think this is also this is a subtle matter of the heart. So I could give an example of, Radiohead makes very non-commercially,
very much so,
like style music, right? And they have commercial success, but they make strange music.
Right.
If the motivation was, I want to make strange music because I know that our audience is going to love strange music and I'm going to do that, that's different than I like making strange music and I'm going to make this. Same exact thought process can be brought to making just a straight up cookie cutter pop record.
Right.
If you like straight up cookie cutter pop records and you're like, this is like the type of music that makes me feel like I'm expressing myself.
Right.
And then I put it out and it happens to be successful or happens to not, that's one thing. And then the other being I'm catering everything towards that. So I think it's a subtle matter of the heart and the reason that you're in it. Right. So it has nothing to do with the sonics. And I think that you can still have pop music that brings those things in because we're also consumers. We're not just like a siloed on an island artistic person that doesn't have influence from anywhere else. So we get influences by things that we hear and we attempt to like take these inputs and try to like combine them in a way that produces something new. And yeah, I think that if that is that's a state of play.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you're a kid and you're simulating reality and you know what I'm saying? Or you're playing a game and you're setting something up.
Creativity, right.
Well, they're only just enjoying the process of doing the thing.
Right.
They're not like ruminating on exactly, bro. You're just, and so if you make art without an end consumer in mind and figure out how to market it later, then you just your art is in a state of play.
Yes.
In a state of communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do you do?
What's up, bro? Getting his iPad. No, I
got you.
And man, and I love those points that you're making because it does bring back into the fold that we've been given these gifts, and from whatever source that we want to say it comes from, it was given to us in this moment. I think I heard Pharrell say it. All right,
bro.
Peace out, boy. I remember Pharrell saying he feels like these creative ideas are almost like library books. And they've been given to us. We pull it out the shelf and we're looking at it and we're like, man, this might be the one for me. Or, nah, not for me. He said, don't be surprised if someday somebody picks that back up and they do the thing and you're like, but I was gonna. So when I look at it from that standpoint.
Oh, I did hear that. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Yeah.
Right. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, there's so much that I feel that not you, but a lot of artists have allowed people who don't make music make decisions about how they should make their music, from the folks that are the suits inside the labels, from sometimes the playlist curators. And that's the thing that I'm most excited about, is not that these people are all bad people, but I'm excited to see what happens when artists like yourself are in control of their business and in control of their creative decisions. Yep. And putting people in place that say, I don't need you to I don't need you to mold me into a commercial success. I need you to figure out how to amplify what's already working here with my fan base.
Yeah.
You
have the power to do that.
We have the power to do that
if you're signed to a label, like, they can shelf your records. If they're like, yeah, this one's not going to make the cut. They're like, well, hold on, this one's extremely important to me to get out here. What do you mean I can't, as an artist, like, publicize the things that are important to me?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm being limited on that front. I also am not anti-label
sure.
by any stretch. I understand the way that it works, but Rick Rubin had a great point on creating for the end consumer, which is, if you're creating with the end consumer in mind, that's commerce, that's not art.
That was in a book, wasn't it?
Well, I saw it in an interview, but I'm sure, maybe
book.
Perhaps
you read that book?
What is it?
Oh my God, what is it called? The something point. What is it called? I listened to the audiobook of it. Man, Rick Rubin, pull this up. The Creative Act.
I haven't read it, but
my, you would love that. Especially just seeing the nature of the conversation we're having. It's one of those things where in the beginning it's a little bit of a slow read for me because he's kind of getting into the general philosophy.
I studied philosophy, so I'm into a.
So you're ready for that conversation?
I'm literally. This might be. I don't know. I don't think everybody would be interested in it. I'm literally watching.
We are. We are.
Yeah.
Give me an idea of how deep does it go? Because I've been into stoicism for some time now.
Yeah. Well,
really
I was just gonna point out that I'm currently watching a lecture series on the history of philosophy from Wheaton College. It was recorded in the 90s, but I found a playlist on YouTube that has 90 1-hour lectures of a guy just up there talking, starting with the pre-Socratic era to Plato's. You know what I'm saying? To
if you want anything you ever wanted to know about philosophy is sitting inside that playlist right now.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, so I watch one of those a day. Like I'm like, so I don't know. I'm also simultaneously interested in that because these are wrestling with the big questions, and I'm trying to just become more educated and more wise about how I should navigate in my life. I think that process is so important. I think, in Christianity, it's
what process are we talking about specifically?
The process of questioning and philosophizing, right? Really questioning and trying to think through things, because your life turns out based on to whatever degree, based on your beliefs. So okay, I said that all crazy, but what I'm trying to get at is that if your core belief is that ice cream is healthy for you, and that's how you live a healthy life, is by eating as much ice cream as possible. If that's a core belief, play that out for 10 years. Okay, see what has happened to your body, see how that has played out for you. That is not calibrated to truth. You know what I'm saying? So your core fundamental beliefs, the degree to which they're calibrated to truth when lived out is the degree to which your life is good or bad.
That's a crazy way to think of it. I like that.
You know what I'm saying? Because everything else is built upon that, bro.
Right.
And I think the a woe is me foundational narrative about your life, what you believe to be true, is that everything external is happening to me. I'm the center of the universe, and this is if that's what your belief system is, when you live that out, it just becomes a cycle of self-reflection and not self-reflection. Sorry,
deprecation.
Yeah, ruminating. Being metacognitive of things. So, or there's all these alternative ones, and so what I'm trying to do is constantly recalibrate to the things that are providing me the most value.
Yeah.
And so personally, on the personal side in my journey in life, I was a much more egocentric person when I was young, and so much to the point that I was just very excited about things I had going on, and I wanted to talk about it.
Right.
And it was me. You know what I'm saying? And I really kind of low key at that time, I didn't have any interest in really what other people had going on. I'm Denzel in my movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm the rapper on campus. I
think a lot of artists go through that period, man, where we're the main character.
Right. And then at one point I just was like, man, I don't really have many friends.
That's a hard.
My relationships with my parents are not good. But my relationships, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel like I don't have any real support system. And so I started to have to go, wait a minute, if everybody's an asshole, I'm the asshole.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's like the truest point. And so that's
is.
when the self-reflection had to start, because I'm like, I was meeting people who had a warmth about them, that have had a family structure and a friend structure and things that I'm like, no, like that looks good. What's going on there?
What's the
Oh,
difference?
well, that person actually listens to what I have to say. This person really listens to me. This person, like, so there's all that's kind of what kind of started the journey. I mean, there's a bunch of things that started the journey. I mean, there's no short, because what we're talking about is every life experience and how it fed to these moments. So there's the process of forgiveness of people in my life that really helped my character in ego dissolution. There's the like it's a whole spread of things, but yeah.
And somehow that leads us back to the ultra marathon.
Ultra marathon, bro.
Can we talk about a little bit about the process with that, the sound of that, who you've been working with on that?
Yes. Okay, so Ultra Marathon was a product of a writing camp. I put together a group of people that would be Oh Gosh Leotis.
Shout out to my guy.
And Bo of Bregma and Donnie of Bregma.
How did you get in contact with these folks?
Internet, bro. Shout out the internet, man. Well, so this was actually really cool because Oh Gosh has produced for SZA, Doechii, like
Curtis
TDE
King,
people, Curtis. You know what I'm saying?
Whoever that guy is.
Yep, exactly. and then Bregma also has, they're multi-platinum producers. They've worked with, they did the Logic and Eminem song Homicide. They did. So I've been tapped in, and what was cool is that somehow over time they became aware of me. I was getting the follow. So when I reached out to them, I thought it was just totally a cold reach out. I'm like, yo, I want to listen. I'm fans of you guys. I would love to work with y'all on a project. And they were like, oh no, we know you. We're tapped in. Like, let's do it. That was surprising to me. But yeah, so the way that worked out is like, all right, I have this place I want to go sonically. I made a mood board of a visual mood board of what I wanted the album to sound like. Okay. And I also made a playlist of some of the sonics that I was into. And we had weekly Zoom calls leading up to this writing camp 3 months before.
You mind if I ask about that mood board?
Yeah, go ahead.
What visually are we talking about? I mean, I know there's different styles of mood board, but what are you doing for a music project for the mood board? What does that look like?
There, when you look at an image and it invokes a certain feeling in you.
Right.
It's like these images, these are the feelings that I want to evoke.
That's
when I look at a Renaissance painting, or when I look at this or that, it makes me feel this type of way, and I want to make music that feels like that.
I like that. Okay.
So I'd never done that before, but it was
your first time doing it. Oh, I thought you had done this for every project.
No. I was just like, I think that would be a good, because I wanted to. The first writing camp I ever did, I was brand new to it, and that was right on the cusp. That was the result of that realization that I had, where I was like, I need to stop being so egocentric. That led me to go, okay, I need to be willing to give up percentages to other people to help the greater good of the art, because there's other people who are better than I am, right?
Can we just say, first of all, DIYers, this is the value of asking these deep questions, because sometimes we get commentary that's like, why are we talking about this? Why is it so deep? Look at how that affects every single aspect of the art. But continue.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so, but in that camp, I had never really worked with people in that capacity, so I really took a back seat, because I was trying to make sure that my ego wasn't getting in the way. I didn't want to. I've always done it myself, so I'm like, okay, you guys tell me what you think would sound good, and like if I don't like it, I'll tell you. But if I'm kind of on the fence, I'm gonna lean into it. This album, I was like, I have a way better idea of where I want to go with this, and these are the people that I think can take it to where it needs to be. So I'm like, how do I communicate that? And I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you a visual representation, and I'm going to give you some sonic representations.
Right.
And so we had weekly Zoom calls. They were sending me, I'm like, hey, send me loops, send me beats you have in the vault that kind of fit kind of this area.
Okay.
I was writing things along this 3 months into 3 months before the writing camp.
Okay.
Then I flew them all out to a cabin in Tennessee, and we took all of these demos that we had and like brought them all the way to where they needed to be.
Right.
So that was the process, man. And that's the way I want to create music. I'm also, I've announced this on socials, but I have a son on the way.
Congratulations.
First son. So you know what I'm saying? I'm about to step into that's a place where you have way more perspective than me, and I'm looking forward to that.
I want to remind me how are we feeling right now? How like just presently in the moment as you're thinking about all these things that are weighing. I mean, you got so many responsibilities as an independent artist in general.
Yeah.
You're on the cusp of a new project. You put a lot of work into this project. You obviously have your normal flow of content.
Yeah.
But then there's a family dynamic that
Uh-huh.
obviously everything circulates around them.
Yeah.
How you feeling right now with that,
Oh,
that
dog.
approaching, bro?
Dog, I can't wait to be a dad, bro. I can't wait to be a dad. And like, yeah, dude, I'm actually super looking forward to the responsibility. Like that's just I'm like, oh, like once this baby is born, I just have a new dose of purpose.
Come
I just get inculcated with a whole new angle of
Every day.
my life being meaningful.
The
like,
moment
that's
you say,
amazing.
"Why am I getting up today?"
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yes, I'm getting up today.
Yeah, man. Dude, I
I
can't
was
wait.
terrified. I don't want to, put anything out there in terms of like whatever you're comfortable with, but I'd be honest with you, bro. I was terrified. I was
Yeah.
terrified because immediately I had those questions that you talked about earlier. Am I prepared for this? What
Yeah.
training did I receive that prepared me for this? Am I ready to? Can I lead? I can barely take care of myself at sometimes.
Yeah,
Am
yeah,
I
yeah.
in a position to where, I'm not eating on time and all of this?
Yeah.
And this is someone who is going to, like, they can't do anything.
Yeah.
without
Well,
the
that's you
assistance of
being
mom and dad.
uncomfortable, which is on the edge of growth.
Facts.
So,
Facts.
and you know what I mean? So once you're presented with those feelings because and the reason you're presented with those feelings is because you know you have an obligation to that,
Sure.
that child.
and
and
you
so-
care. And I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the one thing somebody had to remind me is that the only reason that you feel that you talked about earlier, what you feel that sense of like that purpose and you're excited, you're going into it head first is because you care.
Yeah.
If you didn't care, it'd be like, just,
Yeah.
babies happen every day. And it's like,
Yeah.
I know people who are like that. And now that I'm in this position, it's insane for me to think of, I can't go a few days without seeing, like, if I had people who flew me out for speaking events, I need to FaceTime.
Yes.
I don't know what
Yeah.
life is outside of that. Even in
Yeah.
my work, people are like, do you miss going to late night studio sessions? And I'm like, no. I love the fact that I can do
Yeah.
a show in this room and my
Yeah.
son's over here looking on the stairs and then I can like go to bed.
Yeah, bro, I relate to that. I mean, dude, I miss my wife right now. You know what I'm
Man,
saying, bro?
yeah.
So, no, it's yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. There's a bunch of dimensions by which I'm looking forward to being a dad, bro. Like,
How important, and I don't want to put any business out there because your family is your family,
no,
but
bro, I'm
how,
an open book.
please talk about how, if you don't mind, how important it is, what type of support system does she kind of give to you? Because
Yeah.
everybody needs Nate's time. Everybody's trying to get to you. Everybody's trying to access you. How does that dynamic work out?
Man, it can't be overstated, bro. Like, the marriage I have is so beautiful. My wife has been so instrumental in my own personal development, as we should be. We're two individual people that are committed to a greater goal, and as a result of the process of aiming for that greater goal, despite our own pride and inclinations there, we create something that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Oh man,
It's not just a me plus her. We've created a new thing, and now there's actually a physical manifestation of that.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's huge. Y'all,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. My wife has a business of her own. And we got this home. We knew that it was more rooms than we needed, and it wasn't about a flex. We knew that we need to see to the best of our ability if we can monetize every room. But
Yeah.
we can only do that with each other, right? She has a nail business that she does full time. I have obviously everything that I do here with the content and music, and I know that none of this happens if there's not peace in the household, right? So, something that I made a pivot on. You talk about having these philosophy conversations, these inner dialogues. It dawned on me after reading something that my goal of trying to find work-life balance has been bullshit the whole time.
Okay.
What I should have been finding is work-life harmony,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
What's happening is spending an hour with my son will never feel like spending an hour in front of the screen making a beat.
Yes.
Take that however you want it. They're just not, you put them on the same scale, it's just not the same. My son sometimes has more energy than I could ever have, and he's bouncing all over the room. That's still an hour. You can't measure them the same way. So when I look at it and say, well, in order for, marriage to work the way it does, there needs to be a harmony. Well, part of that harmony is I need to be expected to have the same support system for my wife when it's her time, right? She told me a few days ago, she was like, look, I know you've been DIYing every day, but I need some time.
Yeah. Bro,
Just some me time.
if you had no obligations, no wife, no kids, would you make beats? Like, would you work like crazy?
I think I'm just a workaholic. But
No,
I
but
the
so
why would be
well. The point I'm
different, right.
making though is that left to your own devices with no responsibility or obligation to anyone,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you'd sit in a room and cook up and make music and do this.
Would not be the same.
But it's the self-sacrifice of those personal, egotistical things that allows you to provide for your wife. And here's the thing. Does that feel like a sacrifice to you? Or does it feel like you get that back tenfold in the stability that you feel in relation
That's
to
a
how
great
you
point.
have provided for her and how she is
Right.
providing for you? That's what I'm talking about, bro. Is like,
Yeah.
like this, that is so much more real and rich than all the rest
Any
of
of
it.
the
I mean,
stuff.
like, bro, like my whole music career, like, just went away today like that. Like, bro, I
get
would
that.
go, bro, I'm good, bro.
Yeah.
I got my wife. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
have no idea what it's gonna be like to have a kid. I hear how people talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So
you know, just you
Yeah,
like,
bro.
You like sleep, right? You like sleep, right?
Yeah,
Get as
you go. You
much of
gotta
that as
forget
you
that.
can. Get
Forget
as
that.
much as you can.
Yeah.
People look at me and they're like, "Man, this content is stressing you out." I'm like, "Bro, I ain't slept in 7 years the
Yeah,
way I."
bro.
But it's good because I also think that it's, although I lean into harmony more so, I think that it does create a balance somewhere, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
a balance of, okay, you can't operate the way that you did in your early 20s, Kurt. Like, first of all, you can't do that in general.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now there are people who are relying upon you.
100%.
And even as the man of the household, I always have this theory that, you know, we are the energetic force that determines so much of the mood of the house. When
Yeah.
we're low, there's a domino effect. When we're high, we can help out everyone around
Yes.
us, right?
Yes.
And so in having that mindset, I'm recognizing, like, there are days where I get up, bro, and I'm just like, even this morning, my back, sciatic
Yeah.
nerve and all that stuff,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
like, I got stuff to do.
Yep.
But I get that extra push from knowing who I'm doing it for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
that's
also
great,
too, I
man.
remember Tony Robbins would say, "Life is happening for you and not to you,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that's a mountain that I die on. Life is happening for you, not to you, and all. Life is happening for you and not to you, and then also too, replacing I have to with I get to.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a reshifting of a narrative structure. That's all it is. That's
Yeah,
same thing. Both, you know, it depends on how you look at it. So
changes a
no,
lot.
I think, bro, I think that's amazing. And like, I want to throw this extra point in there
Please don't.
that the process of getting the beauty that comes with those things
Mm-hmm.
always is on the other side of something difficult, because it's
Mm.
by nature that happens. If you want to grow muscle mass
Right.
and become stronger, you have to rip your muscles.
Resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and it's, you have to experience physical pain,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to learn something new, education is good, right? That's going to provide you a lot of great things in the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn something new, you have to go through the stage of not knowing any of the verbiage,
Mm-hmm.
any of what's going on, feeling like overwhelmed by the process. You know what I'm saying? If you want to have a great relationship with a friend or a partner,
Mm-hmm.
you have to take their needs into account
Facts.
over your own needs. That can be uncomfortable
longer
when you're
me
like,
no
I
more."
don't really want to do that. Exactly. But then what comes out of that
Yeah.
is better than the thing you were afraid to let go of.
Facts.
And so
Ooh, you cooking,
you could
bro.
apply
You
that
cooking
across the
today.
board, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Christianity's got a great model for that too. Like,
Yeah,
what
they
do you
do.
think
Yeah.
the Baron, you know what I'm saying? What do you think the cross represents?
Speaking of which, man, and I
Yeah.
wonder, and I want to kind of bring things home because I know you got a lot of things you
For
got
sure,
going
for
on
sure.
today. We really appreciate your time today and just you being so transparent
thank you
about
for
all
this,
of this,
bro.
bro. This is
And you got a great audience, and man, I hope that
Oh, it's
some
love,
of
man.
this stuff we're uncovering, bro, like,
Yeah.
can plant a seed for somebody else. So
this is the audience for that. Like, this is why
Yeah.
I love being able to still create and talk to creators. I think there's a detachment sometimes I see when I see, I don't want to put names out there, when I see certain interviews with folks who were artists, they're kind of talking from the space of media now. And not that I don't want to be better at media, but I never want to lose the connection of, like, dog, what was it like to listen back to your first song? What, you know, those kind of feelings. But I know my DIYers are here. They said planting a whole garden is what Tupapa said with the gym emoji.
Well, let's
So,
go.
Yeah, shout out to you.
Plant the
for-
garden.
for all of that. To kind of bring everything home, man. So, what was the point that I was getting at? It was something I really wanted to drive home after talking about that. Final words that you have for independent artists who are at a place where, Actually, you know what? I just found a point. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Rewind.
Yeah,
We're gonna get
let's
to that.
do it. Let's do it. Bring it back.
So, speaking of the spiritual aspect of it, you know, over the last 8 months, bro, I got hammered, right? Ours was the most mild conversation about the pros of streaming and all of that. But when I made the decision, it was so off-putting for a lot of people that I got hammered in a way on the internet that I've never had before.
Okay. As a
And,
result of taking your music off of Spotify?
just me saying I'm taking mines off.
Okay,
It wasn't even an effort of me saying everybody needs to follow my lead. It wasn't
sure.
no ego like that. It was just a matter of this is a decision I need to make. I remember seeing Prince do it in 2015, and it terrified me. But because it terrified me, I knew I had to experience it.
Yeah.
And so when I did it, man, I saw like think pieces, hate pieces, all these kind of things pop up. And they weren't all just about the topic. It was just like, this is a vulnerable moment. Let's go at them. And I remember asking God, like, yo, like, all I want to do is be successful in what I'm doing. I'm not trying to, you know, I tried my best to avoid controversy, which is funny because now I do reaction clips and all that stuff. But I try to avoid it. But then I had a voice I heard clear as day. God telling me, if you want to get on the ride, this is the admission fee. You want to get to this next level. This is the admission fee. If someone told you that, you have to hear people telling you, oh, your music is this. Oh, I wish you did this. Oh, you know what I don't like about this guy? And they're picking things that are very like personal things to you. If somebody told you that was the admission fee to getting to the next phase of where you've been trying to get to, would you still do it? Yeah. And when I had that posed to me, I said, absolutely. Yeah. It's not even a question about it. Yeah. So I wonder for you, you know, you being in this space, and obviously you've invested so much, I feel like good energy that I'm sure that you're reciprocating. How do you kind of deal with just the nature of the beast that the internet can be sometimes when it comes to your art and putting yourself, because you're going in a really vulnerable place with this ultra marathon and you're putting, you got your mood boards. When you get into, I just know one thing. That's true. I never did it for an album, but when you get into mood boards, there's a strong connection between this means something to me that I had to cut these out and visualize it. So I guess my question to you first, before we get into your advice for independent artists, is how do you kind of make peace with sort of that dark energy that always exists within this internet space for your art?
I mean, Mike Tyson had a quote on this, which was like, if I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, if you're trying to please everybody, then the enemy is yourself, or something along those lines. But the idea is like, everybody's always going to have an opinion. People have vastly different opinions about all sorts of things. Sure. I'm sure if we wanted to go through every little minute detail about ways in which we differ, we could uncover a bunch of them. Right. You know, we also have a lot of things that pull us together. Then the nature of the vulnerability and stuff of the music is going to have the effect that it has. You know what I'm saying? Good or bad or whatever. But there's a mission that is way beyond me that doesn't have to do with me receiving it. The benefit of in real life dissolving the ego is that like good and bad, like I'm not reading the good comments and getting this feeling of like, yeah, I am this shit. More of that. I am that. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I'm also not reading the bad comments and be like, I am that, bro. Right. My identity and view of myself is reflected in the ways in which I'm embedded in my family, and it's not. It has nothing to do with that. These are people that don't know me, that have opinions, and they're wrestling with things that they have to work out. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like there's a way bigger mission. This music is going to serve something way beyond myself, and like that again. Yeah, price of admission. It's like for that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I'll take it every day. Oh, gosh, just popped in here. He said, here we go, the guys.
Shout out, oh, gosh.
I know you said that in your most Anthony Davis voice ever. I know you said that. That's my guy, man. That's my brother. But, man, it has been an absolute pleasure chopping it up with you. I'm glad that we were able to get to a lot of those topics. I want to leave it to the final words. But first of all, where can people connect with you?
Yeah.
Give us 3 songs as an introduction to your catalog
that are out right now.
That are out right now that you feel like that's a good ramp. Yeah. Right? Because sometimes if we go just by the top songs, I heard you talk about
my top song. I almost didn't put it out, but it made me a lot of money, so I guess
right. So
I was
better give or take. But what are 3 songs that are a great entryway into understanding and understanding you, but also like just getting to know your catalog, songs that you still feel like hold that weight?
Yeah. So, the first question was where you can find me. It's Nate Rose Music on all social platforms, and Nate Rose, on Spotify and Apple and everywhere.
Right.
As far as songs that I would recommend that are out now, I would say Level Up is my number one. The problem that I have is I'm constantly developing and learning new things. So I have 12 songs in this back catalog for this album that have way more depth than some of the stuff.
Sure.
But I would say Level Up.
Okay.
I would say Something to Say is a good one. And sonically, let's go with Action.
There it is. Action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Those are 3 good ones.
Words of advice for independent artists that want to follow in the footsteps of a Nate. And maybe this is more so a question about what would you tell yourself? I wouldn't say at 15, but that moment that you had that shift and you were trying to figure out how to be in the shoes that you're in right now, what kind of conversation would you have? What are some things you would have them look out for, or what's some advice that you would give?
Oh, that's a tough one, because like I feel like I followed. Like, I didn't know everything at 15. Obviously, I know way more now. But also, the process of uncovering those things along the way led to my own development, both of understanding of the music business and character. So I don't think it's a situation where I could have just imparted this wisdom and everything just clicks, So I don't know about that. And this is going to sound, when I get asked to give advice, this is truly it.
Give it to me.
And it's not going to sound like great advice. There's probably other advice in here that you should really take. Yeah. But I truly believe this. If you are not willing to make a decade-long sacrifice of everything, that, your time, your money, your resources, the stress that comes with it, the people telling you that, like, why are you trying to do this? If you're not willing to do that for a decade and potentially not even make it, if you're not willing to do that, which it is totally okay if you're not, let art just be art. Let it just be a passion, and don't taint it with all of the, what about the numbers? What about this? How do I do this? Don't do any of that.
Just sign up
have
for stress
fun
for no reason.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Make music. You can pay for DistroKid. You know what I'm saying? Pay a little $20 a year. Put your music on Spotify. Let it live there. You can tell your friends about it. Don't put any pressure on yourself, because you are going to live a much happier life. This is not for the faint of heart. If you can't imagine yourself doing anything else, and the price of admission being a decade of potentially not making it is still worth the end goal if you were to gain it, then go for it. But I really see a lot of people that are kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I'm like, please, like, you are making your life so much more difficult. You're spending money that you could be investing in other ways for your future.
Something that you're more driven by. Something that is at your actual purpose for being here.
Yeah. And so that's a big one for me, because I think you have to have those tough conversations. We've all seen examples of people who have hit a certain age and they have to have that conversation where it's like, yo, I've hit this and I haven't gotten a certain amount of movement. It's time to move on. Yeah. And then there's other people who are like, I can still weather this. I can still make the things work. But save yourself really get deep with that conversation with yourself, because think about what you want your life to be like. It is not, it's easy to look at the person that has all the things up there and not see any of this stuff that was always happening in the background. But there's been a lot of things I have had to overcome. I've spent so much money. I've gone through so many like weird business relationships tearing up because of, like, there's all these things that you just don't even have to experience. Life's going to be hard enough. You know what I'm saying? Don't add that extra thing.
Extra stuff that you don't You don't
so
have to.
let it just be your passion, and if you can't live without it, then go as hard as you can.
Yeah. Well, I 1,000% agree with you. It's funny how he says there might be better advice out there than delivers that kind of advice.
Oh,
you kind of deliver that, and like that wasn't something we all need to hear. But no, that's amazing. Well, DIYers, man, I hope that you enjoy this. This will stay up on the channel. Obviously, got to make sure that those who are just joining us right now have an opportunity to go check it out, man. Absolutely. I'm going to add all these links here to the show notes. I appreciate the last minute situation. We appreciate your time as well, man.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Of course. It won't be the last time either, man, because
let's go. We'll be back out here.
We got to get you on a Flocation episode and cook up or something.
Okay,
we gotta
let's do
figure it out. But we got to make sure this project, Ultra Marathon, please stay tuned for that. That's coming out DIYers, I greatly appreciate you. Nate Rose, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so
man.
much.
Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and listening to me yap. You know what I'm saying?
There it is.
There it is, bro.